Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to make this not very long because I just spent an hour and a half talking about WWE video games. This video game, it's not WWE, we're not beating anyone up, but we are talking about Pragmata. I couldn't really find a good transition on how those games were similar, but maybe someone can throw me a bone and figure it out. Pragmata, I know it's been out for by this time when the video comes out, maybe like a month or 2 months, so I know it's not new news. But I never did a review on it. I think I was busy playing Mouse PI for Hire, and I did a review for that pretty frequently, or pretty soon after I beat it. But Pragmata, I didn't end up playing it for the channel. I wish I would have, but I was a little skeptical on if I was actually going to like the game or not. I did end up really loving it. Spoiler alert, and there'll be some spoilers in the actual video, so just be aware. As far as Pragmata goes, I was a little skeptical. For those that know me, or those that don't, I don't generally venture out to get new video games. When I get a new game, I'm getting one in a series I know. So if it's Mario, Zelda, a Nintendo game that I like, Smash Bros, Mario Kart, or if it's something outside of that, it has to be like Metal Gear Solid, Sonic, maybe a Pac-Man game, Resident Evil, of course, Silent Hill, I've gotten into, or even the Yakuza games. It needs to be something that I've played in a series that I know. I very rarely go out and get just new IPs and new games like that, unless I've heard extensive things, it's been out for a while, and I'm like, alright, I'm going to get into it. But here I went out on a limb because I saw when it was announced and when it came out, and I was like, oh, okay. But days leading to it, and then when it came out, I saw that it was by Capcom. Not only that it was by Capcom, because Capcom makes a lot of games and they have a lot of teams, but it's specifically the Resident Evil team. They literally use the Resident Evil engine for this game. I thought, oh, that's crazy. They literally just made Resident Evil Requiem, so I wonder how many of them were divided up on Requiem versus the ones working on Pragmata. So I was like, I guess I'll try it. And it wasn't a $70 game. It was $60. I had heard the only main complaint was that the length was a little bit short, which, the Resident Evil games have a tendency to be a little bit on the shorter side, which is fine to me. And I'm one of those that honestly doesn't hate shorter games. I prefer a shorter game to be truthful because I know it's not a big risk to my time commitments. And I don't have to spend weeks and weeks playing it. My favorite games are the ones that are short by design, but offer more things to do on the side and things I can spend a lot of time in. So that's why I've really been into the Yakuza games especially. I wouldn't say they're my favorite games overall, but currently they've been my favorite games to play through and replay through. Same with when I was in my Pokemon phase, because I can play through them in a decent amount of time, but then I feel like I have to replay them or complete them or try to do all this other stuff. Pragmata, it is a short game. I think I ended up beating it in around 15 hours. Now, albeit this wasn't a completionist run, I dabbled in it. Usually when I play, I try to do all the side stuff and see if I can complete it. And I usually do that up until I get to a point where I either complete it or I find a trophy or an achievement or something in the game that it wants me to do that I realize is like, oh my gosh, this is going to be way too much of a time commitment, or it's just going to be too difficult and there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I ended up getting a lot of the trophies from it, but not all of them. I realized I was not going to be able to beat it on its hardest difficulty, so I didn't even bother trying. But I did have a good time. The characters, really the main characters, again, coming into spoilers, this isn't a spoiler. You have Hugh, the main character, and then you have the Pragmata AI girl named Diana. That's pretty much it for the most part, because a lot of the other characters, I guess, are like AI robots. Like there's a cabin assistant. Cabin stands for something, I think, like a robot guy. But then there is another girl you meet later on, and I knew from the initial point it was maybe it's just me, maybe it's my super sleuthing detective skills. But again, spoiler alert, gonna put that out there. If you haven't played it yet and you want me to wait, this is your time to click away. You meet this girl about midway through the game that's kind of like Diana, and you're like, oh, I gotta save her. But then she's like, no, you're not going to make it. Save yourself. I'm not worth it. Yada, yada, yada. Seems really fishy. Well, again, you find her there towards the end, and well, it turns out, spoiler alert, she is like the anti-Diana, the bad. She wants to kill humanity. You're out in space because Hugh got, separated from his team. They all died. And, these AI are they're like thinking you're an intruder, so they want to eliminate you. And it kind of feels like a mix of Resident Evil, of course, a lot of similarities to Resident Evil, but spacey, I guess, like Dead Space. I don't feel like I haven't played a ton of Dead Space. I don't think it's like sci-fi horror. I feel like Chronos is a little bit more like Dead Space than Pragmata is. But there's actually a little bit of platforming in Pragmata, just with like your space jumps and stuff, and you have some tools. But it also has these features where you're getting a certain distance, and I didn't really have to use them a lot because I was playing on a lower difficulty. But on a harder difficulty, you can like stop and go back to the main station. You can use these little ladders and go back and come back. So it's kind of like an incentive to like, do you want to go back and make upgrades and use this? Like, you might want to do this because if you die, you're going to have to redo more progress. And it's pretty cool for that regard. The upgrades are nice. I think there's a lot that I didn't get because there's a lot of upgrades you can get to your weapons, your tools, different features. And I didn't even get to use it all. So I would have liked more currency collectible in the game. A different way to use all of that. I think visually the game looked good. I think the story behind Hugh initially being a little bit like, I'm working alone. I like adults. I'm not trying to mess with a kid. This AI, I'm distrusting of AI. But she ends up being really endearing. The two grow. Spoiler alert again. Later on, Hugh gets this stuff that's like shot in him, and he's hiding it from Diana, and he kind of is like going on this quest to see if he can. They remove this stuff from Diana she gets infected, and they can remove it from her, and she learns how to remove it. And he's like, oh, so you can probably take it out of like if a human was to be infected, couldn't you? And she was like, yeah, no, actually they're doomed. Like a human would just die. Like there's no point in even trying to save it. And he's like, oh, that sucks. Okay. And so you go through this whole thing. You fight this girl at the end, and she's goes from this girl to like now this super powerful overlord, like witch lady figure, but AI and having all these tentacles. And the boss fight was okay. It's a little lengthy. It's not too bad. There's a couple boss fights in the game. There's really only one that I thought was neat. The first one's really easy. Then there's one where you're like climbing on these buildings and towers to try to get to it. There's really only like maybe like 3 or 4. They're okay. The combat is the main thing, not so much the fights themselves, but the combat is unique because I was really wondering how this would work. And again, now I feel like it's already been like 2 months since I played it. It doesn't feel like that long, but now when I'm talking about it, I'm like, do I remember everything? The combat, you're doing like your regular shooting at things and stuff like that, but sometimes enemies will have shields, or they'll kind of be guarded off, like where you can't hit them, or maybe you can, but you're doing minuscule amounts of damage. And it wants you to hack them using Diana. And so while you're shooting, there's another little pop-up that's like you have to go through these different paths and hit these different squares, and that lets you hack the enemies so that you can do more damage and open up their weak spots. Sometimes it does a lot of damage on its own. Same with bosses. Sometimes you have different windows to get hit. My least favorite thing, luckily there's a upgrade later on where even if you get hit, you can keep going. Because the worst thing was when you're trying to hack something real quick and you get shot by something else, and then you have to restart, and you're almost there, and then restart, and it gets really annoying. But once you get the upgrade, it makes it nicer. And I feel like it's really cool. It's a really unique idea I've not seen in any other game. It implements it well. It wasn't too hard to pull off. It only takes about, like, it is a little bit weird, and there is an adjustment period to learn how it works. But after maybe like 20 to 25 minutes, like by the first half hour, you're kind of figuring out how it works and how to maneuver it. And by that point, it's just like you're just in the flow. You're just going through it. It doesn't seem that alien or that foreign to you. And so it was pretty easy to pull off. And like I said, the gameplay wise, you very unique. I feel like that's one of the strong points. The story with Diana and Hugh again at the very end. He ends up having to. She really wants to go to Earth and see what it's like and have him show her around. He wants to make it back home, but he's realizing that's not going to be the case because for one, he's probably going to die, and two, even if he does make it home, he stands a risk of bringing that stuff to the humans, which could be a very deadly threat to them and could kill off their whole human race. So when they're getting in the shuttle to go back, he finds this little storage shuttle that only she can fit in, and she's like, "What about you? This is obviously too small." And he's kind of like, "Oh yeah, man, I didn't even think about that. Well, it'll be fine. You'll be all right." And she's like crying, and she realizes finally she's very oblivious to this whole thing, not very aware, and finally he sends her off, and then he's kind of like dying, and he's like, "Oh, okay, well I guess this is where I float off into space." Ooh. She lands on Earth. She's like on the beach or something. So it's kind of setting up like maybe there could be a sequel. Like I think this is a really great game. I think this is something I'd love to see where it goes from here. But the story leaves off in a weird spot where I don't know what they would do. Maybe you only play as Diana, but again, she's a kid. She's an AI. It's not like she's growing or getting older. She's still a kid. So you'll have to finding a new companion. Maybe you explore a different side of the story, like something else that was going on during this time. I don't really know how you continue. Maybe somehow Hugh does get saved and he does make it to Earth. But again, I don't really know. This was I feel like it was made where the story could be wrapped up. If they never did anything with it, it could just be a one-off, which is fine. I think there's so many games that are just these never-ending series that never have a bow tied on it, and you never know where it's going to end. I think that's okay to have some series. Sometimes it's not a series. It's just one game. That's perfectly understandable. Just because it's a great game doesn't mean it needs more. Just means maybe we should let these creators go and work on something else. So I think it's really solid. I think it's really good. I don't have a lot of complaints about it. Again, I wish it were a little bit longer, but it wasn't $70. It was just 60. So at least they did that. They could have just done the usual charge 70 and call it good, because that's what everyone else is doing. But and it's a new IP, so I feel like they understood that if it was Resident Evil, it could have been that length and people would pay for it. But it's a new IP, and so you know what? We'll give it to him for 60 and let him. Maybe people will try it out. And I think it did pretty well. And I'll be honest, probably out of all the games I played this year, Resident Evil Requiem is still my game of the year. I thought about doing a review on that, but I know now that I'm like 4 or 5 months past like 3 or 4 months past the target time for that. So maybe I'll still do one of those this summer. Yeah, that's still my game of the year. I think it's really incredible. I think right now, unless GTA does end up coming out, I don't foresee a lot that will beat it. I am still playing through 007 First Light, and I think people have said good things about it so far. It looks good. We'll see how it plays. I don't know if it would beat Requiem, but we'll see. Mouse PI was good, but it's not winning game of the year. So I think it was pretty solid, but I was really shocked to say that Pragmata might be my second favorite game that has come out this year. And again, I'm also playing Tomodachi Life, which is really fun. But I also realized Tomodachi Life is probably not a game that's going to be winning Game of the Year. It's a life sim with me. It's kind of a jokey meme game. We'll see what comes out that maybe could beat it again. GTA's maybe still on the horizon. I don't know. It's so untrustworthy at this point. I'd hope by getting this soon, it's not going to get pushed back again. But yeah, Capcom has made two of my favorite games of the year so far. My game of the year and my second game of the year are both games developed by Capcom, and not only that, they're developed by the Resident Evil team, and they use the Resident Evil engine, so I think this is a great use for it. It is kind of cool to see a game that's not Resident Evil use the Resident Evil engine that was made specifically for that, but it's a great engine. It looks really solid. It even ran really good on the Switch too. I played that after the fact, and it does run good on it. The only thing it seems, this was kind of the thing with Resident Evil Requiem, was that it has weird issues loading hair. Sometimes the hair looks a little like jingly. I guess I don't know if jingly's the right word or if even if it's a word at all, but it's all right. It's pretty solid. I just don't really know why that's an issue, but very minor thing that's not really a big deal. It's not a deal breaker. I still think it's cool that Switch 2 owners are starting to be able to enjoy a lot of the same games as PS5 and Xbox owners. In fact, there's going to be more exclusives on Switch 2 and more reason to own a Switch 2 than an Xbox, but whatever, that's besides the point. Not trying to get into console war talk at the moment, so I'll hop off here. Just want to talk about Pragmata for a little bit. I think it's great. Go try it. Go play it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's really fun. If you'll excuse me, I need to get back and finish my drink. It's a Friday night. I've got things to do and places to be. Adios. Bye-bye.